We call him Great. Alexander, the golden boy of Macedon, the undefeated prince, tutored by Aristotle, celebrated as the hero of the West. We call him a barbarian. Genghis, the brutal nomad, the savage storm from the east who brought civilization to its knees. But when the hero died, his empire, a colossus built on genius and sand, shattered instantly. When the barbarian died, his empire didn't just survive, it exploded, creating the largest land empire in human history. So why has history taught us to admire the failure and despise the one who actually won?
That question, why, is the heart of this story. And the answer begins not on a battlefield, but in a cradle. We see Alexander as a colossus, born to conquer. But the truth? Alexander was born inside a colossus. His world was marble and sunshine, philosophy and gold. He was the son of Philip II, king of Macedon. And Philip was the real revolutionary. Philip was the one who took a broken backwater kingdom and hammered it into a powerhouse. He was the one who forged the sarissa, the 18-foot spear. He was the one who created the phalanx and perfected the tactic of the hammer and anvil. He built the most sophisticated, professional, full-time army the world had ever seen. Alexander didn't build this machine. He just inherited the keys. While Aristotle was teaching him philosophy, Philip was handing him an empire on a silver platter already pointed squarely at Persia. His destiny was written for him. His path was paved with his father's blood, sweat, and steel. Now, let's travel 1,500 years forward and 1,000 miles east. Here, there is no marble. There are no philosophers. There is only the steppe, endless, brutal, and unforgiving. Here, another boy is born, Temujin. His world is not gold. It is iron, animal hide, and ice. He inherits no army. He inherits no kingdom. At 9 years old, his father is poisoned by a rival tribe. The boy's inheritance? He and his family are cast out, abandoned, left to starve in a world that respects only one thing: strength. This is not a hero's journey. It's a nightmare. Temujin is hunted. He is enslaved. He wears a wooden collar. He watches his wife get kidnapped. This is his privilege, the privilege of nothing, the privilege of seeing humanity at its absolute worst. Alexander was taught how to rule. Temujin taught himself how to survive. So we ask again, who was the greater conqueror? One man was given the sword. The other had to forge it from scraps in the middle of a frozen hell while the world tried to kill him. Before the first battle was ever fought, this contest was already over. The starting line says it all. But the fight, the battlefield, this is Alexander's domain. The undisputed master, the undefeated champion. Let's be clear, Alexander was a tactical god. His art was the hammer and anvil. The phalanx, a 16-deep, living wall of 18-foot sarissa spears, was the anvil. It didn't just fight the enemy. It held them, pinned them in a forest of steel, terrified and immobile. Then, Alexander himself would lead the hammer. His companion cavalry, the finest heavy horsemen in the world, smashing into the flank of the trapped army,
A brutal, perfect, killing blow. Gargamela, Issus, the story was the same. He was an artist of the set-piece battle. And Genghis Khan? Genghis Khan would have refused the invitation. Alexander was an artist. Genghis was an engineer of conquest. He didn't fight battles, he solved them, often before he ever arrived. His army wasn't a heavy wall of steel, it was a hurricane of horses. Every single soldier was a cavalryman, a horse archer, a self-sufficient, fast-moving, killing machine. They didn't have slow, vulnerable supply lines. They were the supply line. They hunted. They drank mare's milk. They could travel 100 miles in a single day and still fight at the end of it. So let's run the simulation, the fantasy battle. Alexander's phalanx, the anvil, squares up on a field, and Genghis laughs. He would not meet the phalanx. He would not charge the spears. He would unleash his horse archers. They would part like water, circling the phalanx just outside of spear range, and darken the sky. For hours, for days. What is the anvil when it's stuck, full of arrows, starving, with no one to fight? And Alexander's hammer? If the cavalry charged, they would be chasing ghosts. The Mongols would feign a retreat, luring the heavy, armored companions into a chase until their expensive, grain-fed horses were exhausted. And then, the rest of the Mongol army would appear. The trap. It wasn't a battle, it was a hunt. Alexander mastered the duel. Genghis Khan mastered the world.
Okay, so Alexander's army was a dinosaur. A magnificent, terrifying, slow dinosaur. But look at what it did. Look at the map. In 12 years, Alexander marched his army 22,000 miles. He crossed deserts, he scaled mountains, he forded rivers, and he toppled the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the largest, richest, most powerful entity the Western world had ever known. He didn't just defeat it, he erased it. At his death, his new empire spanned 5.2 million square kilometers. It was a breathtaking, world-changing, monumental achievement. A single man had redrawn the world. And then there's the Khan. If Alexander's conquest was a wildfire, the Mongol conquest was a planetary extinction event. Let's talk about the numbers, because the numbers are insulting. Genghis Khan, in his lifetime alone, conquered 11 million square kilometers. That's twice the size of Alexander's entire empire. He did that starting from nothing. But he wasn't done. His sons and his grandsons continued the great work. They swallowed China. They swallowed Russia. They swallowed Persia. They watered their horses in the Danube and the Indus. At its peak, the Mongol Empire covered 24 million square kilometers, 1/5 of the entire landmass of planet Earth. Let's be clear, you could take Alexander's entire empire and hide it inside what the Mongols conquered in China alone. This isn't a comparison, it's a demolition. Alexander conquered his world, the world he knew. Genghis Khan conquered the world, period. And that leads us to the final, most important myth of all. But the map, the numbers, they don't even tell the real story. The final myth, the one that truly matters, is legacy. What happens when the conqueror dies? Alexander dies at 33 in a palace in Babylon. His generals, his friends, are already vultures circling the bed. They ask him, "To whom do you leave your empire?" Alexander gasps and whispers the single most destructive words in ancient history: "To the strongest." This wasn't a succession plan. It was a starting gun for 50 years of non-stop, brutal civil war. His own mother, his wife, his son, murdered by his own generals, fighting over the scraps. His empire was not a nation. It was a tent held up by a single charismatic pole. The second Alexander was gone, the entire thing collapsed. He didn't build a new world. He just broke the old one. He was a flash of genius that left behind nothing but ashes. That is the true legacy of Alexander the Great. And Genghis? We are told he was a barbarian, a monster who left behind only pyramids of skulls. And the slaughter was real. It was horrific. But that was not the legacy. That was the tool. From the chaos of the steppe, he built. He didn't just conquer, he created a system. He gave his people a written law, the Yasa. He established universal religious freedom. He created the Yam, the first intercontinental postal service, a Pony Express network that could move messages and intelligence across a continent in days. He didn't just conquer the Silk Road, he became the Silk Road. He created the Pax Mongolica, a world where a man could walk from one end of the empire to another with a gold nugget on his head and never be harmed. Alexander's empire was a personal vanity project. It died with him. Genghis Khan's empire was a world engine. It survived him because he built it to last. One man is called great for failing. The other is called barbarian for succeeding. Maybe it's time we fixed the history books.
So, the choice is yours. Was true greatness the dazzling personal glory of Alexander, a man who burned brighter than any star, who left a legend, but ultimately left a failed state? Or was greatness the brutal, systematic, effective nation-building of Genghis Khan, a barbarian who built an engine that didn't just survive him, but went on to reshape the planet? The history books have given us their answer for centuries. We think they're wrong. This isn't just a video, it's a fight. Pick your side. Are you Team Alexander, the unparalleled tactical genius? Or are you Team Genghis, the ultimate grand strategist and nation builder? We want to know why. Let the real battle, the real debate begin in the comments. This is our very first video. If you believe history isn't about memorizing dates, but about challenging the stories we're told, then subscribe, because we are just getting started.